Hello everybody out there, welcome to another episode of the 11 Bang Bang channel. I'm your host Ethan Woods, and guys, today I've got something I'm very proud of. I've been in the process of I'm going to have to use a code word here, evolve, because YouTube has struck me actually over this very subject I'm about to talk to you about here. And I really don't want to get another one right off the bat. But this is one that I've been working on evolving for a very long time. And it is this paddle butt Wheellock or paddle shafts Wheellock carbine from the rifle shop. And we got her loaded up here, 75 grains of powder, 60 caliber round ball, 61 caliber bore. And let's go ahead and see if we can't hit the ghost of Cowboy Bob over there. Go ahead and drop our dog, and let's give fire here. How about you parry this, you filthy casual? My guys, that's actually a really fun shooter. And let's just talk a little bit about this gun. Not a whole lot about the history. Gotta wait for Thanksgiving for that one. But we'll just talk a little bit about the specs of this particular piece. So let's take a second here just to talk about how exactly you load this thing, because it's a little bit of a different process than a flintlock or pretty much any other muzzle loader. So we just got done firing it. The first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna raise the dog. We're gonna go ahead and we're gonna put that all the way to the top. The next step I like to do is I'm going to load from the muzzle. Generally, guys, when I load from a paper cartridge, I will prime first and then load. Not a big deal with a flintlock. As somebody who now knows a whole lot about how this mechanism works and its shortcomings, I can tell you this: I would not be priming this piece first before I was to load the barrel. So let's go ahead. I got a powder measure. These were shot with paper cartridges. I just don't have any paper cartridges with me right now. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to load our powder measure here, and I'm actually going to bump this up to 100 grains because this is my French powder I was using, or that I made. This is the 1F variety, and it doesn't want to flow very good. Here we go. There we go. All right. So yeah, like I said, I bumped it up to 100 grains because this powder is a little weaker than your standard powder. Go ahead and we'll drop that down the tube. Now, like I said, this is a 61 caliber bore, and the nice thing about that is Lee bullet molds, Lee, reloading, they actually make a 60 caliber ball mold, so I can put a 60 caliber ball, and you can hear it goes all the way to the bottom, but it takes a little while because there's actually air resistance because it's actually a pretty tight fit. It's gonna take me a little bit of a felt wad here, or whatever this thing is. It's made for shot, really. Take my scouring stick, press that down, return the scouring stick, and it does like to do that sometimes, not hit the hole in the bottom. All right, now here's where it gets a little weird. So like I said, we raised our dog first. You have something called a spanner with a wheel lock, and it's this little square hold wrench, basically. What we're going to do is we're going to start off by taking all the slack out of our wheel, and then we're going to rotate it until we hear it click. Make sure that's good and seated really well. Take our powder. This gun actually likes a little finer powder. I'll try it with this 1F here just to see if it'll work, but it does tend to like a little finer powder because unlike a flintlock, this actually has a piece of fool's gold in it that scrapes along that serrated wheel, and that fool's gold has to fall through the powder. Now the wheel is spinning, so it actually throws any of the powder that is resting on it off. But yeah, you want to kind of generally finer powder. All right, so we're going to close our pan cover there, lower the dog, and hopefully this goes off, guys. I'm not going to lie, I have some pretty chintzy iron pyrite here. I need to get some good pyrites for a Wheellock. These are some I cut off with a Dremel tool and they don't work very well, but let's go ahead and we can see if we can hit that target out there at 100 yards. I should add, this thing actually has really nice rifle style sights to it. Let's go ahead and load her back up again. Raise that dog. There you go. Now, one thing I did notice about this gun in particular, it doesn't like graphite coated powder at all. And I gotta say, I can't blame it for that because I don't like graphite coated powder at all. So let's go ahead, let's drop another 60 caliber ball down there. That one kind of got hung up. One of the reasons why I'm using this French powder, like I said, this is the 1F variety that was kind of a byproduct of my other experiment, which you will be seeing eventually. This stuff, it is not very powerful. It's less powerful than GoX. However, it is the cleanest powder that I've ever seen or dealt with. And it ignites extremely easily, unlike Graf & Sons, or what was it, yeah, I think it was Graf & Sons powder that is graphite coated. That stuff did not want to, it didn't want to ignite at all in this thing. So let's go ahead and span her up. Give it a click. Go ahead and do the prime. Like I said, guys, this gun really, I think it likes finer powder, but we'll see. This stuff kind of tends to seem like it likes to go off. So let's see if we can hit Cowboy Bob again. Yeah, let's check our pyrite. It did hit where it was supposed to. I'm gonna get some finer powder because, like I said, this thing, because like I said, if you look down in here, we have this spinning wheel. This iron pyrite has to drop past the pan cover, through the powder and onto the wheel. And if you have a very coarse granulation of powder, I think it kind of likes to hang up a little more. So also, I should mention, I haven't showed this side of the gun very often. These are my washers. This isn't something that's necessarily historical. I took some bone I found out here in the pasture, and I inlaid those into the side for some bone washers, just to kind of give it a little bit of a different look. And also the trigger plate is bone too. It gives it a little smoother trigger pull. So one more thing, guys, I'd like to show you about this gun. It's really awesome. And it's one thing that you would have kind of noticed if you'd have saw my first video on the evolving video of this gun. And that is this barrel. When I first got it, it had really nothing done to it. But if you couldn't tell, man, we got a really nice blade sight on the front and a nice notch on the rear. This thing has rifle style sights, guys. It is insanely fun. It's insane how much fun this thing is to shoot. Load her up again and take another shot. I'm feeling like, yeah, we might take another shot over here at the Ghost of Cowboy Bob or Steel Plate or something. All right, we're gonna try our luck here at, I think, yeah, that's 50 yards. We're gonna try 50 yards shooting over the table, see if we can hit the Ghost Cowboy Bob. Let me go ahead and load this thing back up again. Guys, like I said, this French powder, not very powerful, but very clean. Pour that down the tube. Now, to kind of prove how clean this powder is, I fired it, I think we're at 6-7 rounds now, and another 60 caliber round ball, 61 caliber bore. Still rolls down the bore, and you can hear that air gap. That's how little fouling is actually in this piece. So I'm impressed. I really am. Let's go ahead, get ourselves a little wad here. Just keep our ball from rolling out the end of the tube. You know, old Char might have a run for money for being my favorite gun now. When you've spent this much time working on this is my masterpiece, and you've spent as much time as I have trying to get it to work, and whenever it finally does and it's this good of a shooter, yeah, it's quickly rising to one of my top favorite firearms of all time, especially considering I killed it. Let's go ahead and clean off our iron pyrite, make sure everything's gonna do what it needs to do. Make sure it's gonna fall like it needs to fall. I think that'll work. Now we gotta use the coarse stuff again because I forgot to grab my finer powder. lower the dog, and I think we're ready to fire. We'll try to hit, like I said, this is I think 50 yards roughly. So let's see if we can make him holler. Sure can. You know, it's really nice. A lot of the inaccuracy myths you hear about smoothbores may be due to the fact that they either have A, very rudimentary sights, or B, have no sights at all. This thing is so much fun. Just look at this thing, guys. This thing, oh, it's so beautiful. So beautiful. Such a fine shooter, too. I've only had, what, 2 misfires today, which is saying something for this design. I mean, that's not too bad. While I'm sitting here loading this, I'm going to explain to you guys as best as I can how the mechanism on this gun actually functions. Get my powder poured right quick. So the way that this gun works is it actually has a ball bearing, basically a bicycle chain, an axle, a wheel, a lot of weird things you wouldn't expect to see inside of a gun. And the way it works is as you take your spanner here and you span the axle, and the axle is hooked through a wheel, through a square hole, so when the axle spins, the wheel spins. That axle has a bicycle chain hooked up to the inside of it, and as you turn it, it actually winds up that bicycle chain around the axle itself. Now, as this winds up, the other end of the bicycle chain is hooked up to your mainspring. And so the mainspring is going to start rising and creating potential energy, storing potential energy inside of it. So as you do this, we're going to work our way around the mainspring. There is a sear system. It's a 3-part sear system. You have a short sear, a long sear, and a sear spring, which is shaped like a V. And actually it's funny because the entire sear system and the bicycle chain in this gun are all self-evolved, if you would. So a lot of this is me. Or excuse me, it's not me. Out of 5160. And so what happens is as you turn this and you create potential energy, you store potential energy in the mainspring, and as the wheel's spinning, there's a small hole drilled into the inside of the wheel. And it's going to come to a certain point where it runs into a ball bearing that is sitting inside of a hole in the lock plate. Your long sear, which is being pushed up in the back, down in the front by your V-shaped spring, which is also pushing the short sear forward, is going to get to a point where that ball bearing drops into the notch in the wheel, creating it, making it where it cannot move anymore, because the long sear is going to drop down on it. The short sear is going to move forward, and it's going to hook onto a little notch. And thus, you release it with your spanner, everything holds up. You close your pan cover. The pan cover has a little arm on it that engages with a cam on the axle. And so what happens is when you pull the trigger, it actually trips your short sear, allowing the back side of your long sear to go up, the front side of your long sear, or excuse me, the back side of your long sear to go down, the front side of your long sear to go up, allowing the ball bearing to slide out of that hole that's drilled in the wheel, allowing the wheel to spin, allowing the axle to spin, which hits that arm, knocks open the pan cover, drops the iron pyrite onto the spinning wheel, creates a spark, lights the ignition charge, which lights the main charge through the touch hole in the side of the barrel. That probably doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but it is what it is. Go ahead and prime her up again with our coarser powder, and I am going to crush it up just a little bit before I forgot to span it. Oh well. I'm going to crush this powder up a little bit because, like I said, this gun does not like coarse powder. Maybe that's where the whole idea of coarse powder or finer powder being easier to ignite comes from. I don't know. I've never actually noticed it anywhere besides on a Wheellock. So let's go ahead and let's pop the Ghost of Cowboy Bob again. Actually, I might pop this steel plate over here. So, a little something I have learned, and I'm running out of powder, so we may not be doing a whole lot more shooting, but just a little something I learned. If you're stuck with a coarser grade of powder, you can get away with, you have this spanner here, taking it and using it like a mortise and pestle or whatever you call it, and grinding that down until you get this fine, see if it'll focus in there, fine powder. And I've got the pan overloaded, I have to kind of shake it off, but you get the gist. Alrighty, let's see if we can wake up Mr. Gong, and I'm going to try this little one. Oh man, I missed him. Give it a tap. Go. And we give fire. Small plate. You know, one of the downfalls of the Wheellock is not remembering if you spanned it or not. There we go. Let's see if that helps out any. Got him! That wasn't too bad a shot. Well guys, that's about all I've got for you today, other than to give you my final thoughts on this piece that evolved in my workshop. Guys, I don't know, I think old Char may have a run for money for my new favorite gun of all time, especially just this being my first Wheellock, something I've really wanted for a long time, something I've really loved the history of. It's so cool, and the fact that I evolved it myself, including the lock. This lock is not factory, shall we say. Oh man, guys, this is always going to hold a really special place in my heart. And I hate to say it, but I think it's my new favorite gun of all time. Low recoil, well balanced. That's another thing I should have mentioned. Got this really heavy butt on the back, and so when you throw this thing to your shoulder, your balance point is right there, right in front of the lock. So when you throw this thing to your shoulder, I could hold this out there all day. It is so beautiful. Sights, spectacular. Smooth bore, I love a smooth bore for the simple fact that whenever the faster you load, the faster you shoot, the faster you shoot, the more you shoot, and the more you shoot, the more you have fun. So it's a dream to shoot, guys. It's like a Cadillac. Well balanced, good sights, pretty fast lock. It's a Wheellock, so you know you gotta mess with the iron pyrite every now and then, but really nice lock, really cool piece of history, and it's just so much fun to shoot. So if you ever, oh, and by the way, if somebody tells you you can't evolve one of these with that $5,000 with equipment, a lathe, and a CNC machine, they're lying to you. Oh, sorry. I evolved this with a drill press, files, hacksaw, Milwaukee drill bits, and that's pretty much it. And some chisels and whatnot. So yeah, I guess that's all I got for you. So that leaves us with one more thing to do. And you know what? For once, I'm not going to say it because this gun was used heavily in the English Civil War. Take it away, Ollie.
Though we be outnumbered, we shall win this battle, I promise you. So now, put your faith in God. Keep your powder dry.